Marilyn Ferre. On today's program, significant changes in public policy are being made in Tallahassee. But first, on Tuesday, Broward School Superintendent Jim Nodder announced he was resigning, saying his retirement had nothing to do with the grand jury report calling for the dismantling of the school board and criticizing his leadership. This comes on top of ongoing corruption scandals in Broward County. Joining us to discuss this and other Broward stories, we welcome Tony Finns, editorial page editor at the Sun-Sentinel. Bob Norman, columnist for the Broward New Times and Daily Pulp blogger, and Robert Hill, professor of education at the Fischler School of Education at Nova Southeastern University. Thank you all for being here. Tony, let me start with you. James Nodder said he wasn't going to resign just a couple of weeks ago, then apparently surprised everybody by announcing his resignation, saying that he was 65 years old and wanted to see the world in a new way. Well, he will, for sure. He will. But interesting, he actually told one of our staff members that morning that he had no desire to resign, and then turned around and did. I don't know how much of it had to do with the grand jury report. I think the bigger question is how deep the budget cuts that are coming to that district are going to be. I saw him at a function about 2 weeks ago, and he didn't have an idea. Lawmakers hadn't told him, but it was going to be a huge number. And I think that more than anything, 'cause one thing you can say about Jim Nodder, he was really passionate about, he is very passionate about education. His heart really was in the right place in that regard. But I think, if anything, it was that unknown number in terms of budget cuts and what it would mean in layoffs and what it would mean to restructuring the school district. Well, and just a couple of weeks out, not knowing where that would be or having any sense, maybe one of the grand jury, Bob, really criticized his leadership style and not having the tough temperament to make the tough decisions.
Right, well, he was basically a rubber stamp for the board. And I think that, you know, if he quit because things got tough in Tallahassee, then that's probably worse on him than if he quit because of the grand jury, because that's a real quitter. Somebody that when the going gets tough, he scampers away. But I don't think it was really about Tallahassee. I think it was about the grand jury report. There's a lot of rumors and a lot of ideas about, you know, what might have been going on behind the scenes perhaps the state kind of worked it out for him, or some board activity behind the scenes, but it was clear after the grand jury report that he had to go.
I've never seen a grand jury report, Robert Hill, that says if we had the power, we would dismantle the organization.
Sure.
I mean, that was really astounding.
Yeah, and this is not the first grand jury report, but yes, this was a scathing report that basically, ostensibly, said that they're not just inept, but corrupt. And if it wasn't a constitutional provision that you have to have a locally elected school board, they asked for the dismantling of it. They also called for it to be from 9 to 5 members on the board, and to go with an elected school superintendent. But the other piece about the timing of the resignation was, earlier in the week, new school board member Patricia Good asked for an interim evaluation. They would up his annual evaluation, and maybe that had some time in there, because once they changed the wording of it, it passed with consensus to up his annual evaluation.
Tony.
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly the grand jury report was absolutely humiliating to everybody in that district, not just the superintendent, but, you know, the school board.
But it's also got to be humiliating when you have 2 school board members who are arrested, and there are others who, the rumors about, and you talk about rumors, the rumors about investigations are astounding. And it just seems that, you know, there's an undercurrent in the school system, and maybe in other things political in Broward County, that seems to be festering. There's something that, maybe it's because it was going on for a long time and it was just never caught.
Look, it was. We interview candidates for school board positions every election cycle, and there was not one candidate for a school board position that came in without some sort of wasteful horror story, a wasteful spending horror story in some school somewhere in that district. So this has been going on for many, many, many years. The problem is that for many years, because of the growth in Broward County, the tax revenues continued to go up and up and up. And it's only when they hit the wall and started receding that all of a sudden this becomes the issue that it is. Unfortunately, it should have been an issue way back when, but it wasn't.
The end of Jim Nodder is not going to end the problems at the school board, a long way from that. And the root problems with the school board starts with, you can look at Neil Sterling, a former school board member turned lobbyist who basically financed the majority of the board's campaign coffers and had his partner, Barbara Miller, run their campaigns. They became basically under, it came under his control in a lot of ways. And you see, school board members like Stephanie Kraft doing his bidding. Not only was her campaign financed by Neil Sterling, her husband was secretly on Neil Sterling's payroll. And she's charged now with felonies, but it doesn't have anything to do with Neil Sterling, so she's deep in it. But you see this with several school board members. Are they involved in contracting? Are they allowed to get involved in contracting and so on? They're not supposed to get involved in the day-to-day activities. That was one of the things that the grand jury spoke about, was the fact that they were pulling the strings when they shouldn't have been. They micromanage. They were doing the bidding of the lobbyists and the contractors to keep this. And right now, just to make it clear, school board's $2 billion in debt, and it's clear that they overspent and wasted hundreds of millions of dollars on these schools.
Well, and as somber and serious the accusations about the senior executive management of the school district, what they said about the school board was worse. That they micromanaged and meddled. They all had pet projects. And we have 9 members, 7 single district members, and 2 at large. And how do we get to where we're building schools where we don't need schools? And telling staff at the county office what to do. So they are just now going to go through ethics training. I find that interesting, that the superintendent and the school boards now are putting in place ethics training. Good idea to elect a superintendent? Well, there's roughly 14,000 school districts in the United States, and there's less than 1% of the school districts that have elected superintendents. We're an anomaly besides Mississippi and Alabama here in the state of Florida. We have 67 school districts. Each county is its own school district. We have 25 that are appointed right now, and we have 42 that are elected. And of that 42, they're usually in the panhandle or in the central part of the state in small school districts that are not 100,000 or so size. Broward County is, as you know, the 6th largest school district in the United States, behind New York, LA, Chicago, Miami, and Las Vegas. And we're talking $3.5 billion budget, 300 schools, if you count the 68 charter schools. Gosh, but if it's a $3.5 billion budget and it's $2 billion in debt, I mean, clearly there's an accounting problem, to say the least. I mean, that's astounding. What is assumed? Huge accounting problem with the school board right now. It's basically broke, and just on the appointing versus electing. Well, what supposedly is accomplished by an election? Bringing them to the people. And accountability. Accountability, but it doesn't work that way, and we all know that. And basically, electing a school superintendent is going to politicize that more. If anything, Broward County has too many elected officials as it is. The sheriff should be appointed, and the judges should be appointed. The election process sullies these people and basically leads to dissension and real messes.
The war for money, if it were an elected superintendent, would be incredible. The only advantage to it would be that right now the superintendent, you look at the number of players that the superintendent is basically pitted against. You know, you've got the lobbyists over here and the school board members over here and the union, the teachers union over there. That's another one. That's another one that in all this has gotten kind of a free pass, and it ought not to get a free pass. Why? Because what have they done or not? Well, if you look at the last contract, one of the key gripes that in fact that's been raised here was teacher morale. And if you look at one of the big gripes that the teachers have is the pay system. Well, that pay scale under the last contract basically gave teachers from the 1st year through the 8th year very minuscule raises. But teachers at the 20th and 21st year, somewhere between $7,000 and $9,000 a year raises per year. Now, I don't know how many people out there get $9,000 or $7,000 salary increases from one year to the next, but they got it, and that was not a... because of seniority, because they're the ones who are pensions. Pensions was a big deal because they were setting themselves up for large pensions. That keyword comes back. And after we ran our editorial criticizing the union for having structured it that way, we got calls from tons of teachers saying, well, the reason is because the people who've negotiated this for the union were all in that category. So true or not, I don't know, but the union... So it contributes to the debt.
Absolutely.
Well, of the 16,000 teachers in Broward County, the average teacher career span is about 14 years. These steps that these teachers get up until where they reach those plateaus are just a couple $100 a year. And yet there's money, but there is money to hire Miriam Oliphant.
who was, most might remember her as the Broward Supervisor of Elections, who was fired, and then she applied to a job as a teacher, found that her credentials disqualified her. She wasn't qualified to be a teacher, so she was fired from that. But now she's qualified to be a school counselor.
At the top end of the salary.
Right.
And chosen as a guidance counselor, over 65 qualified and more experienced guidance counselors who applied for that job who weren't even interviewed for that position.
Well, clearly she knows how to get a job. I mean, that's something
She knows how to write a resume to a job too.
And she knows how to write a resume. Another thing that we see when it comes to Broward County is the ongoing investigations with the county commission. And one of the things that you see is the demoralization. And you also have not only the county commission, but you have just a couple of weeks ago the mayor of Tamarack was arrested. What is going on? Was it, Bob? I mean, what's going on? Was there like no supervision going on so that, you know, you look everywhere and it seems like everybody is under some type of surveillance somewhere?
Well, I think it's a culture of corruption that's been going on for 30 years that finally they're doing something about. In this case, the key figure in bringing about the change is a developer by the name of Bruce Chait. And he basically paid off everybody. I mean, it seems that everybody he got into contact with, he paid off, including Stephanie Kraft, or allegedly Stephanie Kraft's husband, to buy a mitigation fee reduction, a $500,000 mitigation fee reduction from Stephanie Kraft. Bought the allegiance of Tamarack Mayor Beth Talabisco. That's why she was arrested. You have Joe Egliston, who's in prison right now, the former Broward County Commissioner. They bought him a golf membership. All of these people voted for the Chaits. So the real difference is we've got somebody talking about it from the inside. And I think that that investigation is not going to stop. There's more investigations going on. And prior to the Chaits blowing up, and part of it as well, the FBI did their undercover investigation that started in 2005 or so, and wound up with the arrest of Beverly Gallagher, the school board member who famously put
$12,000
federal money, federal bribe money in her doggy bag after lunch. It's just a sad story, but and also Fitzroy Salesman was arrested in that. So you can trace it back to the FBI, then to the Chaits, and right now, and then to the grand jury, which was started, people don't even remember, was started by Charlie Crist trying to, you know, get his hand in the pie somehow.
What do you mean get his hand in the pie?
Well, I mean to get, you know, political, I think it was for political
to get exposure.
Reasons. Yeah, I mean to make it look like
he was involved.
He was involved in doing something as well. And he didn't say investigate the school board. He just said start this thing up. Naturally, it started up in Broward. And naturally, they went after the school board because it was easy pickings.
You know, but part of the problem here is it's really a complete systemic failure here. Why? The reason that the money becomes so important is because very few people vote in these elections. So basically, it's old style machine politics. I got my clique of people,
sounds that way.
And for us to vote for you, we need X, Y, Z, and these are the guys that grease it. You know, in these municipal elections in Broward County, if you get 9% of the voter turnout, it's miraculous. And when you got only 9% of the voters deciding an election, well, then it's machine politics. It's who you know, who knows who, and what you got to do to grease the wheels.
I was told that in one municipality, one voter showed up. I guess it was the candidate who was running. But it's one of those things that's just absolutely astounding.
Well, there was a special election in Miramar when Fitzroy Salesman, the first time he got booted out. And basically, we had 7 candidates come in. And I was doing the numbers. And one of the candidates said, well, do you know 200 people? Because if you know 200 people, you have a good chance of winning. And the guy said, yeah, I know 200 people. He had 220 votes and came in like 3rd or 4th or 5th place, something like that.
Why,
so that's how it is.
Why do you have that complacency on the side of voters? Why are people particularly, I mean, we complain in Miami-Dade County, but your numbers and scandals in Broward County give us a little comfort.
It's maddening because you look at how many people right now are paying attention to their tax rolls, to their tax bills, to where their property taxes are, to where their home values are. And yet, for some reason, that intense focus on what you're paying on your property taxes does not translate into the people who are charging you those property taxes. So therefore, they don't go to the polls, and it's perplexing.
Robert Hill.
In the school board, which are nonpartisan elections now, in Broward County and Dade County, we went with single-member districts. I guess now, since we televise the school board meetings, we've had some high-profile people on the board from Tallahassee, Eleanor Sobel, Jennifer Gottlieb, the wife of a former representative, now a county judge, the daughter of State Rep Nan Rich is now elected on the Broward County School Board. In order to get reelected, they have to bring some pork back to their district, and that's what the grand jury report came out in terms of the construction dollars in these different places in the county. But unfortunately, after this election, we had 4 new board members get in Broward County, and 2 days after the grand jury was released, flanked by 8 out of the 9 school board members, including 3 of the 4 brand new elected school board members, they all showed solidarity as Superintendent Notter circled the wagons. So he's leaving or announced his resignation, yet he still has support of the board.
Well, there's no leadership on the board, and that's the problem. And I think you've got half the board now is brand new, and I think they're trying to figure this out. You know, they have their own strings attached, I think, but you know, in terms of the voters, and you know, where does the money for these elections come from? It comes from the special interests that by the politicians, and they feel that, you know, with the right amount of money and the right mailers, they can win. It makes them very arrogant, and it's only things like, you know, media attention, grand juries, and indictments that get in the way of these people.
Word, Tony.
Yeah, and also we need to draw a distinction too in this. When we look at the Broward County Commission versus the Miami-Dade Commission, there's a strong mayor in Miami-Dade. There isn't one in Broward County. So what happens is in Broward County is that you have the commissioners really hone in on their districts, almost like fiefdoms. And basically what happens within that district, it's their doing. It's the machine politics. There's nobody, they don't cross the district lines.
Some of that might happen in Miami-Dade County too, but we're out of time for this discussion. I'd like to thank Tony Fiddens, Bob Norman, and Robert Hill for joining us. Up next, what mills are moving quickly through the Florida legislature? Stay with us.